Today we geek out about Nouvelle, France. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Lee with Geek City USA here, and today we're going to talk about a game by Jackbro Games called Nouvelle, France. Now in this game you play a 17th century colonist where you're trying to build up these buildings using these really neat Tetris style pieces, and you want to build as much as you can before the snow comes. So what does that mean? I'll take you over here, I'll show you how the game is played, give you an overview of the game, and we'll come back and we'll give you our thoughts on the game. All right, this is Nouvelle, France. Now, I have gone ahead and there's a little more table sprawl on this than there will be when you actually play a game of this. I've gone ahead and I've laid all these pieces out just so you can get a better visual idea of what these look like. Typically, I would stand all these upright so you wouldn't really be able to see all the cubes in there, but I wanted to lay it out again so you could see the different styles of blocks and options that you have. Now in this game, players are going to score points, and they're going to do so by building structures, and they're going to take these blocks and they're going to place them on the outer edges of each of these buildings here. You have the mill, you have the military area, and you have the church. And when you place the blocks, now anywhere on these external gray areas, you would score points, and you'll score points for the number of cubes that match your own color of a block. So in this case, if the blue player had played this right here, there's only one blue block on here, so the blue player would get 1 point. In addition, if at any point one block touches another and you have one of your colors touch the face of another one of your colors, you would score additional points. So for example, if this block were already down and this one touched it, instead of scoring just 1 point, you would score 2 points, one for each block, or one for the block, the new block, and one for the block that is touched. Now, in addition to that, you will see that there are these little totems here, and they each have 3 values on them randomly. You have a 2, you have a negative sign, and a plus sign. And you're going to randomly distribute these to each location, and you're going to give each character at a location this little score tracker that matches the cube that's at the top of that random measuring stick. Now what happens is at the end of a round, and the rounds are going to end when you draw a snowflake card. This when the snow is going to fall, you're going to build some snowdrifts. I'll get to that in a minute. But when that happens, you will go through and you will total up any of your color cubes that are on the bottom. So in this case, if it's the end of the first round, we're going to score the very bottom layer of this location. So if I had 3 blue bricks, I would get 3 times 2, that would be 6 additional points for the blue player. If by some chance we had this green plus at the bottom, let's say over here, these 3 bricks would be worth 3 points. Now if these were here on the bottom, these 3 bricks would be worth negative 3 points. So it's pretty simple, double, negative, and positive per each brick. Now on a player's turn, typically what they're going to do, there's going to be 2 cards already on this little strip here. They'll draw the top card and place it in the corresponding place of whatever type of block that matches. And then what they would do is pick from one of these locations a block that they would play. So in this case, let's say it's the blue player, they'll take this one here. There's 2 blue blocks here. We got double the points here, so they would play this right here on this spot, and that would give the blue player 2 points. We would continue over to this player would draw a card, and they would see it's this shape. I'm not going to try to pronounce these because you see they're all in French, I'm assuming, obviously. So then this tan player, let's say that they decide they want to pick this one, so they would discard this card, and they'll play it, say, over here. And that would give them 2 points because there are 2 tan blocks on this piece here. Now there is a strategy involved when you place these, because by this player placing these on this military building here, they know that they're going to get 1 point at the end of the round when it comes time to scoring this. They're also going to give this blue player 1 point, but the white player is going to lose 1 point based on this placement. And finally, when the third round ends, this player is going to score 2 points. So you need to be very mindful when you're placing a a block anywhere as to what these scoring totems are, so that way you can kind of plan on whether you're going to maximize your points, and at the same time you don't want to give yourself 1 point and give an opponent 4 points in the process. So let's just say that they put that there for now and they have their 2 points. Now each player is also going to have these blocks. There's a set of 3, a set of 2, and then there's a singular block. And what can happen is, instead of drawing a card, the blue player could opt to place this. And in this case, let's say, for example, this were right here, they could place this block down and they would get 3 points for it, and it would be face to face with another one of theirs that would give them a total of 4 points, taking them from 2 points to 6 points. Now you can only place this block you could place the third one before the first snowfall, and that's the first snowflake you draw. And then you can't place this until after the first snowflake is drawn and before the second snowflake is drawn. And then finally, you place this block between the second and third snowflake. So you really only have a certain amount of card flips before you'll be able to place these. So if you wait too long, you might miss out on your opportunity. And also, if you wait too long, somebody else might take a location where you might want to put your blocks here. Now there is a placement rule that you can have at most 3 high. So in this case, if I were to put this here, I could not put anything on top of this brown block because we already have 3 cubes high. Now I could take this and put this on top here, no problem. But I could not, again, go beyond the height of 3. Also, you can't lean over into these center areas at all. You always have to keep your bricks on the gray outlines. Now, each player is also going to come with 3 different cards that they get to use each round. So in this case here, you have this card, and this lets you double the number of cubes that you would score. So in this case, if you score 2 points, you can flip this over and you can double that, and actually this player could have scored 4 points. Now, this one here, this lets you score half of whatever your opponent has scored. So let's say that this player wanted extra points. They could flip this to score 2 points if this player had scored 4. And this is limited to the first player who calls it. So if you have a full, if 4 people are playing, for example, and this guy just got, say, 8 points for whatever reason, you want to be the first person to call and to use your card, because if you flip one and score that, nobody else can score half of their points. Now this final card, this Huron card, if, let's say, for example, it's the blue player's turn and you launch a card across the table, let's say that card is drawn there, and maybe they want a different card, maybe they want a different block, they can use this card, flip it, look at the top card of the deck, and if they want to, they can actually swap this card out if they so choose. And again, these are refreshed after the first snowfall, or actually after each snowfall. After you add the snowdrifts to the board, then you would refresh all of these cards here. Now these bonus points here come into play once the game moves on a little bit. And let's say that we have a whole bunch of blocks here on this location. We'll just throw some stuff out here. Let's say the majority of this is full. If the very last person were to place this block here, and you can see no more gray spaces from the top down, let's pretend that all these gray spots are filled, that player would get to score this bonus at the end of the game. So let's say the blue player placed these bricks in, let's just pretend here for a minute that all these gray spots were full. They would be able to take this and score these 15 points later on. Now I'm going to put this here, and we're going to show you what happens after a snowfall. All right, now let's say that it's this player's turn here, and they're going to draw a card, and uh-oh, we have a snowflake. So they're going to put this right in front of themselves, so that way they remember it's their turn as the game moves on here. And you're going to do a few things. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to tally points based upon these measuring sticks. So in this case, the green plus, we're going to look here, and this color player has 2 cubes at the bottom, so they would get 2 points. So, and actually, let's just pretend that both players, they were about there on the score track based on what they put out on the board here, so they would get 2 more points. And the blue player has 3 down there, so they would get 3 points. Now here, this measuring stick has the 2 at the bottom, so this player over here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 times 2, they're going to get 18 points here, so that would take them up to 38. And the blue player here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 cubes at the bottom. That would give them 8 times 2 is 16. So they would move up 16. So we have 1, 5, and then what are we at? 25, 35 points. We'll look at this location here, and this measuring stick has a negative. So here's where they're going to start losing points. So this player has 2, 3, 4, 5 at the bottom. So they're going to go backwards 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the blue player has 2 at the bottom. So they're going to go back 2. So that's the first part of the snowflake card. Now the second part is the snowdrifts. Now each building has these snowdrift pieces that you will actually place around each location. And I'm going to make some room here. Again, I had to cram everything in order to fit on the table, or on the camera, rather. But these will go in here, and you will place a snowdrift around each location. Now, anybody that did not use their 3 stack of blocks, those would be removed. They're going to play or flip over all these cards again, so they are available. And this player would continue their turn. They can draw, place this card here. Now we have 2 there, and then they can continue to go. Now, when it comes time to scoring points, they will not score anything on the bottom. So let's say that the blue player played this right here. Now, they would score 1 point for this blue block. Now, even though there's a blue at the bottom here and they'd be touching, you don't count that because that first level, you don't count for scoring anymore. So they would score their 1 point for placing that if this were the blue player's turn. Or in this case, if this is the tan player's turn, they could place that in there. They would score their 1 point, and that would be it. They would continue on. Now you can actually still use these to place in to work towards covering that bottom so you could score these bonus points, which you can still score, but when it comes time to scoring your blocks face to face, you don't count them. So let's say that we go through some more cards. I'm going to go ahead and lay out some more blocks on the board. All right, now we'll continue on. Let's say it's the blue player's turn, and we'll flip. And look, we got another snowflake card. So then we'll go ahead and total the second row. Now again, just like in the first turn, you'll start at 1, you'll look at the measuring stick. This one, the second row, you're going to get 1 point each. So you'd go through here and you'd look and say the tan player has 1, 2, 3 in the second row, so they would get 3 points there. Blue player has 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, so they go to 54, and so on. This would be whatever number of cubes they have times 2, and then this last one would be the number of cubes. Each one would be negative 1 point. And then once you do that, you're going to place the second layer of snowdrifts. All right, so here's what it looks like after the second snowdrift is put on. Now, much like the first one, that second layer of blocks is no longer counted for scoring. So for example, if I were to play this block as the blue player, this would usually score me 1 point. Now, if I put it here and it went face to face with this other blue block here, prior to the snowdrift, I would get an extra point, so that would be worth 2 points. But I can't score that point because it's covered by the snow. So this would only be worth 1 point when you place that. Now you would continue on the game until you get to the third and final snowdrift. Again, it's shuffled randomly into the deck. And on the third one, you're going to go ahead and score the very last layer of points. You'll move everybody forward and back on the score track in association to where their blocks are and how their points are scored. And then at that point, it is the game end, and you tally, you add whatever bonuses that you had for completing any of the locations, and the person with the highest amount of points would be the winner. Now that's a real high level overview on how to play Nouvelle France. I'm going to take you over here. I'll give you our thoughts on the game. All right, now that was Nouvelle France. Now, that was a prototype copy of the game, so make sure that you check out the Kickstarter page or the Board Game Geek page for what the final version of the game is going to look like. As far as the prototype goes, I will say, and you can see from that video, that it was a really fascinating game. I mean, these pieces are 3D Tetris-style pieces, each individually created, by the way, for this prototype, which I thought was really cool. And I really thought that the snow pieces that you built around the buildings, that was a fascinating design choice. Really cool to play with, a cool texture, just a cool overall vibe to the game. Now the art on the game as well, and you can see from that video, was really neat. It gave a cool vibe of the whole 17th century colonization feel that the game was trying to set across, as well as the it really brought in the cold elements of the snow, obviously with the snow wooden pieces that you're putting in, but just the art style on the cards, the snowflakes and everything, it helped really bring the theme across in the game. Now the gameplay in this game is really easy to pick up. It's really clever. So the mechanics, you're drawing a card. It's giving you a choice of what pieces are available to you. You're selecting one that has maybe the best color combinations that you want to use to get the points that you're looking to get, and you can place it in whatever building you want. Now when you place it, maybe you're placing it to score yourself the most points, or maybe you're doing something to set yourself up for a big score later in a later scoring round, and maybe you want to do something that's going to hinder your opponent's score as the game progresses. So a lot of cool different options for scoring and for playing the pieces that you're playing. And then as the game goes on, you're going to randomly get the snow cards that you're going to draw. That's going to be when the snow comes. And during that time, you're then going to score that row or score that layer, and then move on to the further rows. It's going to change how scoring is done for the future rounds. And I thought this was a really cool element. Now, first of all, like I said in the components, when discussing the components, the way the snow goes in is a really cool element to the game. It looks awesome. The board as a whole just looks cool as you're building up these buildings with these Tetris style pieces. But then when you put the snow on it, it just gives a cool feeling and a cool vibe to the game. And then again, the gameplay elements with how this handles and impacts the scoring. So future rounds, you're not going to score anything that's underneath where that snow layer is, which is kind of a cool aspect to the game. And you have to really plan for that snow. Much like planning for winter, you have to play your extra piece before you lose out, because if the snow falls, you can only play that during certain seasons, if you will, or certain areas of snow. Before the snow, after the snow. But also, you can't necessarily look at a building and say, hey, I can always play this later, I can always score this later. You have to be aware of not only how your opponent's playing, but also how the deck's going. Like, are we going to have snow happen soon? So maybe I need to get these extra points over there to do well for me. Or hey, my opponent's in the lead, I'm going to have to change my strategy from building points to me to maybe do something that's going to get them negative points when the scoring happens. So all in all, I thought that was a cool element to the gameplay. Now, Nouvelle France is so unique and so interesting that it's a game that a lot of different players that we've played with just wanted to check out. It looks cool, the table presence is awesome, and the gameplay is easy to learn. There's a good layer of strategy to it, so if you're looking for a deeper thinky kind of game, you can really plan how you want to maximize where you want to put your pieces, but at the same time, it's, again, easy to pick up. So if you have, kids 10, 12 years old, they're going to be able to sit and figure out and understand the concept of the game so they can play it as well. So it's a good mix and a good blend of all sorts of people. And like I said, I've said this a few times already, the game looks great. The table presence is awesome. So it's that game that as you're playing, if you're playing at a game night and you have enough people where some people are at this game, other people are at that game, it's one of those games that somebody's going to walk by and look at and just want to know about the game. It's a conversation starter because it looks so cool on the table. So let's talk about the replayability factor of the game. So this is a game that plays fairly quickly. It plays in roughly 45 minutes, and every time you play the game, everything's going to be randomized as far as what buildings are worth what sets of points. And not only that, but you're going to have access to different pieces based on what cards you're drawing as the game goes on. The snow is going to come at different times in the game, so every game is going to feel different. And if you're a fan of abstract games, this is a game that you'll probably get to the table fairly often because of its short play time, ease to teach to people, ease to understand and pick up, and just the overall fun of the game. All in all, we were really big fans of this game. No secret, obviously, we loved the look and the presentation of the game. The gameplay itself was great. It was an accessible game, was a lot of fun, plays quick. So all these things really stood out. And plus, we were a big old school Tetris fans, so I was really fascinated to see how these Tetris style blocks, handmade in the prototype by the way, were going to function and perform in this game. So we loved the game. We had a lot of fun with it. It was a hit with all ages really and all levels of gamers. And I think that if you're a fan even of abstract games, this is something you're going to want to check out. And if you like the look of it, I would highly recommend checking out because we had a lot of fun with it. All right, guys, that's it. I'm Lee with Geek City USA. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Be sure to comment, subscribe, like, all that stuff. Check us out on the other social media platforms and interact with us. We love to get to know you guys, but thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.